Pathos. How to evoke emotion in writing. Aristotle divided the means of persuasion into three categories: ethos, pathos, and logos. Each consists of a number of strategies used by authors to persuade different kinds of audiences for a variety of writing situations. This video will focus on the second of the three appeals, pathos. Pathos represents an appeal to the audience emotions like sorrow, anger, sexual desire, or humor. You often find examples of pathos in advertising. On the left, you see a classic Budweiser ad where a white male who's taking a break from manly activities like hammering is gladly interrupted by his beautiful slim wife who dutifully pours him a glass of beer in a pretty fancy glass. What does this advertisement evoke in us emotionally? If we drink Budweiser, we could feel as happy and delighted as this couple fulfilling the stereotypical gender roles of the 50s. For a modern audience, however, this ad probably incites anger or laughter. In this next ad for Camel Lights, we see a smooth character, an animated camel with a phallic nose, smoking a cigarette. In the background is a sexy blonde on top of a Corvette. What does this advertisement evoke in us? If we smoke, we could be a sex magnet as well. Now, what does pathos look like in writing? If we look at Stephen Marshy's opening paragraph in the Atlantic article, "Is Facebook Making Us Lonely?" Yvette Vickers, a former Playboy playmate and B-movie star, best known for her role in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, would have been 83 last August, but nobody knows exactly how old she was when she died. According to the Los Angeles coroner's report, she lay dead for the better part of a year before a neighbor and fellow actress, a woman named Susan Savage, noticed cobwebs and yellowing letters in her mailbox, reached through a broken window to unlock the door, and pushed her way through the piles of junk mail and mounds of clothing that barricaded the house. Upstairs, she found Vickers' body, mummified near a heater that was still running. Her computer was on too, its glow permeating the empty space. What does this opening paragraph evoke in us? Marshy establishes association between social media, loneliness, and death, of which both death and loneliness represent two of our deepest fears. In this apartment, we see images of cobwebs and yellowing letters going through the stages of decomposition and a mummified body. We have walked into Yvette's burial chamber, and social media has nailed her coffin shut. By starting this essay with images of death and loneliness, Marshy predicts humanity's inevitable end if they continue to isolate themselves from face-to-face relationships for the convenience and comfort of virtual ones. Now, if Marshy only writes about the associations between social media, death, and loneliness with this descriptive language, then the audience may accuse him of being overly biased or manipulative. Rather, Marshy balances this narrative by following with studies from different disciplines like psychology and neuroscience to defend his claims. Let's look at one more example. This is a passage from Mark Twain's essay, Advice to Youth, which can be found on the popular website about.com. Being told I would be expected to talk here, I inquired what sort of talk I ought to make. They said it should be something suitable to youth, something didactic, instructive, or something in the nature of good advice. Very well, I have a few things in my mind which I have often longed to say for the instruction of the young, for it is in one's tender early years that such things will best take root and be most enduring and most valuable. First, then, I will say to you, my young friends, and I say it beseechingly, urgingly, always obey your parents when they are present. This is the best policy in the long run, because if you don't, they will make you. Most parents think they know better than you do, and you can generally make more by humoring that superstition than you can by acting on your own better judgment. Be respectful to your superiors, if you have any, also to strangers and sometimes to others. If a person offend you, and you are in doubt as to whether it was intentional or not, do not resort to extreme measures. Simply watch your chance and hit him with a brick. That will be sufficient. If you shall find that he had not intended any offense, come out frankly and confess yourself in the wrong when you struck him. Acknowledge it like a man and say you didn't mean to. Yes, always avoid violence. In this age of charity and kindliness, the time has gone by for such things. Leave dynamite to the low and unrefined. Go to bed early, get up early. This is wise. Some authorities say get up with their son. Some say get up with one thing, others with another. But a lark is really the best thing to get up with. It gives you a splendid reputation with everybody to know that you get up with the lark. And if you get the right kind of lark and work at him right, you can easily train him to get up at 9:30 every time. It's no trick at all. In these opening paragraph, Twain uses humor with lines like, "Always obey your parents when they are present," which pretty much means that you don't have to obey them when they're not present. And in the next paragraph, he advises the youth to hit someone who has offended you with a brick, and then to acknowledge it like a man by saying you didn't mean to throw the brick, which is pretty ridiculous and silly. And then, of course, dynamite is for the low and unrefined, but bricks are okay. And in the next paragraph, he offers great advice about getting up with the birds, but then you could train the birds to get up later, which is pretty absurd. This essay sounds awfully like a Stephen Colbert monologue. Let me give you a few tips for using pathos in your writing. First, tap into your audience emotions by thinking about their deepest fears, greatest aspirations, and people's need to connect. By knowing your audience this intimately, then you can consider specific anecdotes, your tone and attitude in your writing, or the use of humor or descriptive language. A single word like mummified can elicit fears of death. Second, don't insult the intelligence of your audience. When advertisers generate their ads, they are communicating to the lowest common denominator. In writing, your audience may not appreciate gimmicks or sales pitches. In Marshy's article, if Marshy went on and on about Yvette's apartment, then he would be trying too hard to sell the idea that her apartment looks like a burial chamber. Rather, he uses subtle hints, allowing his audience to piece the puzzle themselves. However, if he only used one descriptive word, let's say cobwebs, for instance, then that wouldn't be enough for us to get it. Many old houses have cobwebs. That's not too unusual. The key is to strike a balance. Third, consider other mediums and modalities when appealing to pathos. A description that evokes sadness could be strengthened by a sad song in the background. Hollywood does this all the time. And last, always consider pathos in conjunction with ethos and logos. This concludes my video on pathos, how to evoke emotion in writing. Check out the next video in this series on logos.